Forget everything you think you know about what an avoidant wants. Not the surface level version, not the they want someone who gives them space conversation, not the just stop being so anxious and they will open up framework that gets repeated until it loses whatever truth it once contained, not the checklist, not the type, not the aesthetic or the attachment style or the carefully curated emotional distance that gets mistaken for the thing itself. What draws an avoidant into something that functions for them as close to madly in love as their architecture allows? What creates the specific, involuntary, defenses down experience of genuine falling is not a type, it is not a strategy, it is not a set of behaviours performed with sufficient consistency to hack the nervous system into attachment. It is a person. A specific configuration of qualities that exist together simultaneously in a single human being. Rare enough that the avoidance system, which has spent years successfully managing attraction into something controllable, finds itself, for once, unable to run the management. The defences go up, and somehow this person is already inside them. That person might be you, or it might be who you are still becoming. Either way, understanding what they are, understanding the complete interior and exterior picture of the person an avoidant cannot defend against, is worth every minute of this conversation. The first quality, and it sits underneath all the others like a foundation. This person knows who they are. Not perfectly, not with the finished certainty of someone who has never been confused about themselves, but with something more durable than certainty, with a genuine, embodied, unperformed familiarity with their own interior. They know what they value, they know what they will not compromise. They know the difference between who they actually are and who various relationships and pressures and accumulated expectations have tried to make them. And they live consistently enough to be felt by everyone around them, from the former rather than the latter. This quality, identity solidity, the researchers might call it, is not arrogance. It does not announce itself. It does not require external validation or the agreement of others to remain intact. It is simply present, like a frequency the person emits without trying to emit it, felt before it is understood, registered by the nervous system before the conscious mind has found the words for what it is noticing. The avoidance system, which is exquisitely sensitive to whether someone's sense of self is contingent on the relationship or independent of it, reads this quality immediately. And the reading produces something unusual, something the system did not prepare for: safety. Not the safety of someone who will not hurt them. The system is too sophisticated to be fooled by that. The safety of someone who will not lose themselves in the dynamic, who will not gradually dissolve their own boundaries in the service of managing the avoidance comfort, who will remain, regardless of the temperature of the relationship, recognisably themselves. To a system that fears engulfment, that fears the dissolution of the self that closeness threatens, a person who cannot be dissolved is not threatening. They are the first genuinely safe thing the system has encountered. This person is also, and this matters more than it initially sounds, genuinely interested in things that have nothing to do with the avoidant, not as a performance of independence, not as a strategy deployed to seem less available, actually, authentically, deeply interested in the world, in ideas, in their work, in the specific pursuits and questions and areas of knowledge or creativity or experience that captured their attention before this person arrived, and will continue to hold it regardless of what happens between them. The avoidant is drawn to this with a force that surprises them, because the person who is genuinely occupied with the world is a person who does not need the avoidant to be their world, who is not looking, consciously or unconsciously, for someone to complete them, to anchor them, to provide the sense of meaning or purpose or forward momentum that a full life ought to generate from within itself, who brings their own fullness to the relationship rather than arriving at the relationship as a vessel waiting to be filled. This matters to the avoidant nervous system in a way that is almost mechanical. The approach of someone who needs them, whose emotional stability is contingent on the avoidance availability, whose sense of self visibly depends on the relationship's health, activates the withdrawal response. It creates the experience of pressure, of encroachment, of the relationship as something that requires constant output to maintain. The approach of someone who is genuinely full, who is, in the most authentic sense, fine, does not activate that response. It activates something closer to curiosity. to the specific interest of encountering someone whose interior is worth exploring rather than managing. Here is a quality that almost never makes the list, but belongs near the top of it. This person has a relationship with their own pain that is neither dramatized nor suppressed. They have been through things, real things, the kind that leave marks, that reshape the interior, that require genuine processing rather than the bypass of pretending they did not happen. And they have done that processing, not completely, not perfectly, not in a way that leaves them without wounds, but sufficiently that the pain has become part of them, rather than the defining fact about them. It informs without consuming. It has been metabolized into something, wisdom, depth, a specific quality of compassion that only comes from having genuinely suffered and genuinely survived. The avoidant, who has spent a lifetime managing their own unprocessed pain through the mechanism of distance and self-sufficiency, recognizes something in this person that they cannot immediately name. The recognition is not conscious at first. It is felt, a quality of realness, of someone who has been in genuine contact with their own interior, including the parts that hurt, and has not been destroyed by the contact. This is compelling to the avoidance system for multiple reasons. It is evidence that emotional experience can be survived, that vulnerability does not inevitably produce devastation, that someone can be open to pain and remain functional, intact, even deepened by it rather than broken. For the avoidant, who has organized an entire life around the prevention of exactly that kind of emotional contact, meeting this evidence in embodied form, in a person sitting across from them who is clearly both feeling and fine, is quietly revolutionary. The way this person communicates deserves its own examination, because it is specific and it produces a specific effect. They say what they mean, not brutally, not with the bluntness that is really just aggression dressed as honesty, but directly, without the layers of implication and indirection and carefully managed subtext that characterize communication in most relationships. When they feel something, they find language for it that is accurate rather than strategic. When they need something, they name it without the performance of not needing that social convention so often requires. When something is not working, they say so, in terms that are clear and owned, and not designed to produce a particular response in the listener. This directness, for someone who has spent years decoding, whose primary relational occupation has been the exhausting work of interpreting ambiguous signals and managing unclear expectations, lands like oxygen in a room that has been subtly short of it. The avoidant does not have to translate this person, does not have to run the interpretive algorithm constantly, checking and rechecking the meaning behind the meaning. What they say is what they mean. What they need is what they name. The gap between the surface and the interior, which in so many relationships produces the particular anxiety of never knowing where one actually stands, is narrow in this person. Narrow enough to be legible, narrow enough to produce, in the avoidance nervous system, something genuinely rare: relaxation. The subtle, cellular relaxation of a system that has finally, in this specific interaction, found no threat to manage. Now, something that complicates the picture in a way that is important. This person also pushes back, not aggressively, not with the energy of someone who needs to win or needs the avoidant to be wrong in order to feel right, but with the specific, grounded confidence of someone whose perspective is their own, genuinely held, not available to be overridden simply because the other person has a strong opinion or a stronger personality, or the particular social force that avoidants sometimes use, unconsciously, to maintain control of their relational environment. The avoidant expects, at some level, that their management of emotional distance will go uncontested, that the withdrawal will be accommodated, that the redirection of intimate conversation towards safer territory will be accepted, that the dynamic they have established in every previous relationship, where their comfort level sets the ceiling for everyone else's expression, will replicate itself here. This person does not replicate it. They notice the withdrawal and name it, gently but clearly. They experience the redirection and decline to follow it into shallower water. They feel the management and respond to it with a calm, undefended curiosity, not accusatory, not wounded, but genuinely interested in what is happening and willing to say so. The avoidant, encountering someone who will not be managed, finds something activating in the most unexpected way. Not activation in the threat sense, activation in the aliveness sense. The particular electricity of being in the presence of someone who cannot be moved, who has their own gravitational field, who requires actual engagement rather than just the performance of it. This is the person the avoidant finds themselves thinking about at strange times, during the ordinary moments that should not carry any particular charge, in the middle of something completely unrelated, with a frequency and a specificity that the management strategies cannot suppress. There is a quality in this person that is almost paradoxical and yet completely essential. They are warm and they are unreachable. Not unreachable in the avoidant sense, not defended and distant and managing their interior behind walls. Unreachable in the sense of being completely themselves, not available to be reshaped by the relationship, not configuring their identity around what the dynamic requires or what the other person can receive, or what version of themselves seems most likely to produce the desired response. The warmth is genuine and total. When this person is present, they are fully present. The attention is real. The care is real. The quality of being seen by them, which is different from being observed, different from being assessed, is an experience that does not fade quickly from the nervous system's memory. And simultaneously, they are in possession of themselves in a way that cannot be destabilized by the relationship. Their sense of self does not contract or expand based on the avoidance behaviour. Their emotional state does not map directly onto the temperature of the dynamic. They are affected, genuinely, humanly affected, but not controlled. The warmth and the groundedness exist together, simultaneously, without contradiction. For the avoidance system, this combination is without precedent in most relational histories. Because warmth in the avoidance experience has almost always come packaged with need, with the implicit condition that the warmth must be matched, maintained, responded to in kind, or the warmth withdraws. This person's warmth does not carry that condition. It is given freely and held lightly. It does not demand reciprocation in order to remain present. A warmth that does not invoice. A care that does not require management. An intimacy that does not threaten the self. The avoidant has no prepared defense for this. The system that was built to manage closeness encounters closeness that does not require management. And in the absence of the threat the defenses were constructed for, the defenses have nothing to do. This person also has something in their relationship with the avoidant that is difficult to manufacture and impossible to fake. They see the avoidant accurately, not the curated version, not the competent, self-sufficient, together on the surface presentation that the avoidant has learned to offer the world. The actual interior, the defended places, the loneliness that lives inside the self-sufficiency, the hunger that the independence was built to conceal. The specific and genuine tenderness that gets expressed sideways, obliquely, in the small gestures and carefully understated moments, rather than the direct declarations that the system cannot yet produce. This person sees all of it and does not recoil, does not try to fix it, does not make the seeing into a project or a therapy or a gentle campaign to turn the avoidant into someone more emotionally available. Just sees, with the accurate, unhurried attention of someone who is genuinely curious about what is actually there, rather than what they wish were there. Being seen accurately, fully, without the idealization that is really a form of not seeing, is the most intimate experience available to a human being. And for the avoidant, who has spent years successfully preventing that level of perception from reaching them, being seen by this specific person and finding the seeing bearable, even desirable, is a genuinely disorienting experience. The walls were built against this exact thing, and this person walked through them not by force, but by being, simply and completely, someone whose presence made the walls feel less necessary. What happens inside the avoidant when all of these qualities exist in a single person? Something the system was not designed to process. The deactivating strategies run and find nothing to work with. The minimization algorithm tries to reduce the significance of the connection and keeps returning error. The focus on flaws mechanism searches and locates things that are real but insufficient to override the accumulating weight of what this person is. The exit planning tendency begins its work and discovers, with something approaching bewilderment, that the imagined life without this specific person lacks something that the strategy did not account for. The feeling that was always managed gets, in the presence of this person, louder than the management. Not all at once, not without resistance, not without the familiar cycling of closeness and retreat that is the signature of the avoidant experience in real time, but cumulatively, irresistibly, with the force of something biological rather than chosen. They fall, not in the clean, story-shaped way that falling looks in narratives, but in the real way, slowly then suddenly, with the specific terror and specific wonder of someone who built an entire interior fortress and is watching, for the first time, the fortress feel like less of a necessity and more of a limitation. This is who the avoidant is madly in love with, not a type, not an attachment style, not a strategy executed with sufficient precision. A person, whole and particular and self-possessed and warm and direct, and capable of being fully present without requiring anything from the avoidant's presence in return. A person who sees accurately and stays anyway, who pushes back without hostility, who has been through pain and is neither defined by it nor defended against it, who is so fully occupied with the business of being themselves that the relationship, rather than being the container their life is poured into, is simply one of the many rich things their life contains. You may recognize this person. You may see parts of yourself in the description, the parts that existed before the dynamic compressed them, before the punishment trained them into smallness, before the pattern taught the most genuine version of you to stay quiet. Those parts did not disappear. They went somewhere. They are waiting, with the patience of things that are genuinely and inalienably yours, for the conditions that make their full expression feel possible again. The avoidant falls for the person who brought them back. The question worth sitting with is not whether you are that person for the avoidant in your life. The question is whether you are that person for yourself, because that, the full, uncompressed, unpenalized, completely inhabited version of you, is not something you become for someone else's love. It is something you return to for your own, and everything else follows from there.